This book is literally Wattpad fanfiction, and you will not convince me otherwise. What's up, book nerds? I'm Lucky's Universe, and in this week's video, I'm going to be talking about books I never said I read. I'm going to talk about some books that I've read in the past couple months that I haven't told anyone about because I'm a busy girl and these things take time. That's a lie. I really haven't been reading that many books. My reading goal for 2022 is set at 65 books. Last year I read 82 books, but I definitely rushed through a lot of them and I was listening to a ton of audiobooks at the same time. So this year, since I want to focus on my writing, I gave myself a smaller goal so I can take the time to enjoy the books that I read. According to Goodreads, I am 4 books behind my schedule. You know, Goodreads has always reminded me a little bit of my mother, just popping out of nowhere to remind me of my failures. We live 5 hours apart. I swear she can still hear me when I talk about her. That woman has spidey senses. Anyways, I have been super unmotivated to read lately. I have not finished a full book in like 3 weeks. I would say that I was trying, but I'm not. Let's just talk about the books that I have read, okay? Let's get into it. The first book that I read in 2022 was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This is an adult thriller and it was super hyped up because it was picked for Reese Witherspoon's book club. Do I follow Reese Witherspoon's book club? No. Do I follow any other celebrity book club? Also no. But apparently if a famous person chooses a book, we should all read it. And I am nothing if not a person who loves to blindly follow instructions with zero independent thought. I'm just a catch, aren't I? So we start the book at a wedding on a secluded island off the coast of Ireland, and we know that someone has died, but we don't know specifically who. The book continues to switch between the day of the wedding and then the days leading up to the wedding, changing points of view between different characters, including the bride and groom, the groomsmen, the sister of the bride, and the owners of the wedding venue. I wanted to like this book. Like I said, it was super hyped up, and the premise is actually really promising. You don't find out which of the characters is the murderer and the murder victim until the very end of the book, and the author constructs the characters so that they all have motive to kill one another, so it keeps you guessing, and I thought that was really clever. The problem for me with this book was the writing. It was just so dry. It was drier than my dating history. It was a bunch of really short sentences and the author did a lot of telling but not a lot of showing, so it just made the writing seem flat and boring. The characters weren't very likable, and I'm not saying that every character needs to be a ray of sunshine. Our favorite color on this channel is morally grey. But part of what makes the reading experience fun for me is to have at least one character that I can get attached to and that I can root for to survive. But this book didn't give me that. I was kind of bored with all the characters by the end. I gave this book 2 stars. I read Burnt Out by Victoria Brookman, and I am so pleased with how this book turned out. It's an adult contemporary romance that was sent to me by HarperCollins Publishers, and bitch, someone call Wattpad because this story put all Harry Styles fanfictions out with the trash, I tell you. So it's about an Australian writer, her name is Kaleida, and she wrote a best-selling novel which launched her career, and she's now locked into a contract to produce another novel. The only problem is she hasn't written a single thing in years. Bitch, me too. When a bushfire completely destroys her home, she suddenly seizes the opportunity to spin the best lie of her life. She tells her publishers that she lost her entire, completed manuscript in the fire and now she has to start from scratch. What a tragedy. Not only that, but the bushfire gains public attention and a video of Kaleida ranting to Australia's elite billionaires to, quote, fucking do something goes viral. In response to this video, one particularly handsome Australian billionaire offers to house Kaleida in his fancy-ass boathouse for as long as it takes for her to write her novel again. And she obviously accepts. This book is literally Wattpad fanfiction and you will not convince me otherwise. It's such a ridiculous concept, and I think that's why it works, because it allows you to just indulge in the fantasy and escape reality for a bit. As a writer who struggles constantly with writer's block, I found Kaleida's character to be really relatable. And the writing overall in this book was just very funny and well-paced and down to earth. So I gave this book 5 stars. I just really enjoyed it. I read Kingdom of the Cursed, which is the sequel to Kingdom of the Wicked. And all I can say is, what a change of pace. I mean, I knew it was gonna be spicy because literally everyone on the internet was losing their shit about it, but I think that's what let me down in the end. I didn't love the first book, but I liked it because it was a YA fantasy book about demons and witches that for once wasn't super spicy. If you're new here, hi, I'm Lucky's Universe and I don't like reading spice. The fact that the second book was so spicy, it kind of just turned me off, which is ironic. My main problem with spicy books is I feel like the plot very quickly begins to revolve around the smut and then the other plot points kind of get lost in the background. Like book 1 was romantic and all, but it was also about this girl trying to find her sister's murderer by manipulating the princes of hell. But in book 2, I feel like that part of the plot got lost between the spicy scenes, so that was disappointing and I ended up rating this book 3 stars. The last books I'm going to talk about together, that's Graceling and Fire by Kristin Kishore. These are childhood favorites of mine and I decided to reread them this year. Right off the bat, I can say they are just as good now as they were when I first read them. I read them probably when I was in middle school, but I never ended up reading the third book, Bitter Blue. And then in the last couple years, the author has released a 4th book called Winterkeep, so I decided to reread both Graceling and Fire before moving on to Bitter Blue and Winterkeep. Although I haven't read the last 2 yet, if the author keeps to the pattern of the first 2 books, you should be able to read them on their own as standalones. However, I know that Bitter Blue is about a character who was in Graceling, so maybe you do have to read the other books now, but I know that Fire and Graceling, you can read them separately. The reason I love these books so much is because the romantic relationships are so freaking healthy. Like, they're so healthy, they make me sick. Even when the characters are going through the enemies phase of their enemies to lovers plotline, they still have the utmost respect for each other, and they're so communicative with their feelings. They're really healthy relationships, okay? I feel like in this day and age, enemies to lovers swerves pretty hard into toxic territory, which is fine because it is just fiction, but sometimes I just want an enemies to lovers romance that doesn't make me question my morals and sanity. Even though I like the book Fire more, I like the character of Katza in Graceling more. Graceling was published in like 2008 thereabouts. And back then it was kind of rare to have a YA female protagonist who didn't want to get married and have kids, or who didn't end up getting married and having kids at the end of their arc. I also love how the author navigated and validated Katza's feelings on the subject. So for context, Katza is hesitant to get into a relationship with her love interest Poe because she doesn't want to be tied down to any place or any person. A lot of YA books do have female characters who aren't interested in getting married, but then they meet the right person. Or they don't want children, but then they overcome their fears. And yes, that's fine. Marriage and kids, it's a totally normal, totally healthy thing to want. But sometimes I feel like it just reinforces the narrative that women have to get married and have kids in order to live a complete and successful life. As a fellow woman who does not want to have kids and has to face the daily onslaught of rhetoric, oh, you just haven't met the right person, don't you think you're being selfish, OMG, you're missing out on a wonderful life experience. I just appreciate a female character who doesn't need marriage or kids to complete their arc. I also love how on board Poe was about the whole thing. Like, he just sets my standards for men way too fucking high. So there you have it, some of the books I never said I read. There are many more books, but I am reaching the limits of my attention span. I need to get some coffee into my system before I drop dead. If you don't already follow me on TikTok, go check that out. I post some pretty cool stuff on there. I will also leave a link to my Goodreads account down below. I also have an Instagram account now, so if you want to go check that out, go follow the link below. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you later.